Chapter 17. Daniel stood in the small and cramped men's room just off the conference room and looked at himself in the mirror. Oh man, did he look like a wreck? The bags under his eyes, the wrinkled clothes, and forget about the 5 o'clock shadow. He had about 10 o'clock. Getting a scoop of hot water in his hands, he got it in his mouth and wished it around, and then gargled with it. He stretched. Oh, if he had to give one more interview, he would truly lose his voice. Still, he had to admit, it had done a lot of good. The reports coming in showed that chaos was diminishing, and order was slowly being restored. A number of commentaries were already predicting a banner day for the stock market when it opened. A knock, and then the door eased open. Kelly tentatively stuck her head in. "Ah, Daniel, are you decent?" He turned to face her. "Oh, I'd take a shower and some industrial strength deodorant to do that. What's up, Kelly?" She laughed and held out some toiletry items. "Here, the ladies and I were able to scrounge these up for you, and we even found a clean shirt." He took the items. "Thanks. Any chance of getting a hot meal?" "Yeah, not to worry. The guard has a field kitchen set up down on the ground floor," Kelly said. "How do you want your eggs?" "Scrambled would be great," he said with a smile and started to lather up his face. "You got it." "Oh, make it snappy, my man. All 3 of the network morning shows are begging you for an interview. On top of that, CNN, the Weather Channel, and..." Daniel groaned. "More interviews?" Now, it's understandable. You're big news." He sighed. "Oh, okay, but I get to eat first, got it?" Kelly grinned and gave him a salute. "Yes, sir. Ada was right. You were born to command." With that, she slipped out, and Daniel was able to shave and clean up in peace. Oh, silence. What a relief after the night they'd had. An hour, shaved, changed, and finally well-fed, Daniel returned to the conference room. The place erupted into applause. He stopped short and looked around. Had some sort of celebrity walked in behind him? "Big bro, come and look at the latest news," Gabriella said, coming and taking him by the arm. "Gee, isn't this a bit much?" he said. They reached the table and she pointed at the TV screen. The Weather Channel was reporting on the latest levels on the storms. It seemed Finale was now little more than a tropical storm, and its eye was just about 30 miles off the coast. Daniel's jaw dropped. "Oh my goodness. It really worked? The storm is dissipating?" Kelly nodded. "Yes, I just got the latest report for the storm tracker planes. The winds are dropping off rapidly. And the subs report that the seawater temperatures around them is down to nearly 50 degrees, Ensign," Aja said. "Wow," Daniel said softly. "Well, I guess we can have the subs switch off the Sub-Zero units. They've done their job." Aja nodded and moved the radio. Gabby and Kelly both hugged Daniel, and Mr. Fenton moved forward to shake his hand. "Well, Daniel, I think it's time we get the first network in here for an interview," he said. "And there's no saying no. This is the single biggest news story of the decades. Maybe the millennium." Daniel nodded. "Okay, I'll sit for some interviews. On one condition. I want to know what's being done to find my pop." "Not to worry," Kelly said. "The Coast Guard has a fleet of ships out there. They're engaged in air-sea rescues for all shipping. And they've been given all the information on his boat." Gabby nodded. "Yes, and they said they'd send a helicopter here to pick us up and take us out there to look ourselves." "Wow, that's more than I was expecting. Where are they going to land?" "We had the news trucks moved from the front lawn outside the lobby," Aja said. "They'll be here within the hour." "Well, it sounds like we better get to those interviews then," Daniel said. With that, the doors to the conference room were opened, and the news crew descended. As Daniel became the biggest science celebrity since Carl Sagan, Kelly slipped away to try her phone. She left the conference room altogether and moved out to the little patio that overlooked the city. Wow, what a view. There were some storm clouds off to the east, but they were all very small storm clouds. She smiled. Yeah, Daniel had done it. The city looked a bit beaten and bare. The evacuation and looting had left their marks, yet there was also a sense of hope. The sun was rising above those storm clouds, and the place had a rather clean look and smell to it. The rain had had a very cleansing effect on the area. Kelly dialed and waited. "Hello, this is Ralph," came her father's voice. "Dad, it's me," she said. They both promptly burst into tears and launched into descriptions of what they had been through. "We've been watching the TV at the shelter, Kelly. That Daniel was a good man, even if he isn't a witness. He's very good." "Thanks, Dad. I think so too." "Oh, he's on TV again," Ralph said. "Kelly, can't you get him to dress better? After all, your mother gave him some very nice shirts." Kelly laughed. "Sorry, Dad, but he came over here with very little clothing. I had to trade my shoes to get him that one." Ralph laughed with her. "Oh, wait until your mother hears about that. If I know her, she'll drag you both clothes shopping as soon as you get home. Which, by the way, when will that be?" It may be a while. For Daniel, anyway. You see, right now," she gave him the full story on Alex and the efforts to find him. "Well, you tell Daniel that I and the whole family will be praying for his dad. I'll even pass the word to our friends at the Kingdom Hall. We'll get them all praying for him. Also, tell Daniel that he changed destiny. All the signs were there for the end of the world, as the Mayan mythology and the Bible prophecy warned us about. But thanks to his great work, the end of times will always be remembered simply as the beginning of a new era. Kelly blinked very fast, even as her throat tightened. She cleared her throat as best she could before trying to speak again. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot to Daniel and to me. With that, she hung up. Turning to go back inside, she heard the sounds of a helicopter approaching. She spun around and looked up. There it was, coming in fast from the north. Kelly stepped over to the railing and looked down. The front lawn had been cleared, and she could just make out the two people standing in among some police. They had to be Gabby and Daniel. Darn, she'd hoped to see them off. Oh well, they'd be back soon enough. Kelly tugged on her hair. Yes, they would. But what would be the news? She decided to try and put some worries out of her head, and she dialed yet another number. The roar of the helicopter became deafening, so she stepped inside so she could hear. "Oh there, the Tony Memorial Hotel. Manager Fabio speaking," came over the phone. Kelly smiled. "Fabio, what are you doing?" "Hey, Kel. Oh, we just figured to honour the big goof. Where are you?" "Still over in Miami. We're trying to clear things up so we can head home to help with the repairs. How are all of you settling in?" "Well, my mum's house is nice, but we're wall-to-wall people here, and little Janie cries late at night," Fabio said. "Somehow I don't see me ever having kids unless they come with earplugs." "So who'd you manage to squeeze in there?" Kelly said. "Let's see, Greg and Anne and the kids are in the master suite, Ronald and I are in the guest room and the bunk beds, and John is in my old room with Olga. She had an old bassinet in her place and she brought it over for the baby, and Ronald and I managed to fix Greg up with a wheelchair so he can get around. The hospital wanted to give him crutches, but they had none left." "What about your mother? Where's she sleeping?" "Oh, this time of year she's up on Cape Cod. She hates summers in Florida. Too hot for her. Heck, why do you think she said we could have the place?" Kelly laughed. "Ah, I see. She's got the perfect house guests in her house while she's not there. Smart lady." "Yeah, that she is," Fabio said. "Yeah, I guess you got your brains from your dad," Kelly shot back. "Oh, ha-ha," Fabio said, his voice full of sarcasm. "Good one, Kelly," Ronald said. Suddenly there was a chorus of voices on the line. "Hey, what's going on over there?" Kelly said. "We're all on the extensions," came several replies. With that, they all started talking, and Kelly got a royal earful of the latest news. Out over the eastern coast of Florida, Daniel looked down into the waters of the Atlantic. The Gulf Stream was below them, carrying the warm water of the Gulf of Mexico up along the eastern seaboard. Was it also carrying his pop's remains as well? He and Gabby sat in the back of the rescue helicopter and shared a pair of binoculars. The sides were open so that they could easily scan the area. The ocean seemed very calm and peaceful, barely a ripple of waves. This truly was the calm after the storm. The pilot's voice crackled through Daniel's headset. "Mr. Mayhew, we've got a report from a cruise ship just a little northwest of here. They spotted a sailboat about an hour ago, badly damaged." "Any signs of life?" Daniel said. "No, not yet. It was scattered across the seashore, but they were able to see its registration numbers. They match your father's boat." "Are they mounting a rescue?" Gabby said. "No, sorry, Mum, their ship is too badly damaged and they have no way of getting ashore, but they did send us the coordinates." "Then let's go," Daniel ordered. With that, they took off, roaring across the open waters of the Atlantic. It only took about half an hour to reach the area. They could see the cruise ship, badly listing, standing off in the distance, and there was the beach with all manner of junk and remnants strewn across it. Daniel's heart sank. The boat was little more than a shell of wood and fiberglass. He opened his mouth to ask what they were planning to do and got his answer. The helicopter hovered over the area as a small Coast Guard cutter moved in closer to shore. Looking across the open water, he could see several larger Coast Guard boats moving in to help the cruise ship. "Captain, is there any way we can get down there?" Daniel said. "Yes, sir, in the basket, if you're willing." Daniel looked out at the metal mesh basket hanging out the right side of the helicopter. It was not the sort of way he wanted to get down, but he also knew that it was safe. After all, they used it all the time to rescue people. He looked at Gabby. "Shall we?" She nodded. "As if you have to ask." With that, they climbed in and snapped on their seatbelts. Giving the co-pilot a thumbs up, he pressed the button to lower them down. Below, a small boat from the cutter reached shore and began to search the area. Daniel looked over the edge. The life jacket he had on was awfully bulky and made it tough for him to turn his head. Was that a grey-haired man over on the beach? A moment, they were on the sandy shore and the sailors were helping them out of the basket. Although Daniel did notice they seemed a little too eager to help Gabby, he moved to her side. "Okay, gentlemen, I got her," he said. "She's my sister, I'll have you know." And my daughter, came a familiar and gruff voice. Daniel and Gabby spun around, smiling. There, just being helped to sit up, was Pop. He looked like he'd been pounded, drowned, beaten and battered. His right arm was in a sling. But he was also alive. They raced to him and embraced. Most of the crew quietly slipped away to search the area and give them privacy, and Daniel and Gabby helped Pop to lie down on a gurney. A doctor started to listen to his heart, while an orderly ran an IV into his arm. "Take it easy, Pop," Daniel said. "Just lie back and let the doctor check you over." All right, you don't have to baby me," he griped. "It's just a broken arm. After all my years, what's one more?" "One too many," Gabby said, tears in her eyes. "Please, Pop, rest." He laid back and smiled up at them, his left hand patting Gabby's cheek. "Oh, all right, sweet, because you ask. Daniel, I'll only say this once. I don't care about money. I don't care about what your brothers say. You are my son, and I love you. I was a fool, and I'll not be one again. It doesn't matter, Pop. Nothing matters now that we're together. And from now on, we always will be. I lost Mum due to a hurricane. I was not about to lose you to a hurricane also. I missed you so much," Daniel said as tears came out of his eyes. With that, they got Alex into the basket, up into the helicopter, and headed back toward Miami. Daniel and Gabby were able to stay with Alex the whole time while the doctor worked on him. By the time they landed at the hospital, the doctor had good news for them. Alex had a broken arm, 2 back breaks. He was dehydrated, had multiple bruises, and was suffering from exposure, but he would recover. On the roof of the hospital, they were met by the staff and also Kelly. She rushed to embrace them all, and then Kelly reintroduced her. "Pop, this is Kelly, my girlfriend, and my soulmate." Alex grinned even as they rolled him toward the waiting elevator. "Well, I guess he told me, eh, Kelly?" She laughed. "And me?" "Well, I'll let you in on a little secret, little lady," Alex said. "I see the same fire in your eyes I saw in his mother's all those years ago. You do yourself a favor. You grab him before he changes his mind." They all laughed even as he was loaded into the elevator, and Gabby joined the rest of the medical staff to ride down with him. "I'll stay with Pop. I'd say you guys have wedding plans to go over." With that, the doors to the elevator closed and Daniel and Kelly turned to face each other, huge smiles on their faces. They looked at each other for a moment, lost in each other's eyes, and then embraced for a long kiss. "So you ready to head home and face the prospect of rebuilding?" Kelly said, breaking from his grip. "Kelly, so long as you're at my side, I'm ready to face anything." She opened her mouth but never got to say anything. Her phone rang. Whipping it out, she answered it, and it was soon clear that it was Mr. Fenton back at the Hurricane Center. After a moment, the happiness evaporated from her face. "Kelly, what's wrong?" Daniel said. "We have new trouble. A 7th storm is forming by the Leeward Islands, so it would appear that Sub-Zero is going to be needed again." She nodded. "Yeah, but I would say we can easily face that as well, don't you?" Daniel smiled at her, took her right hand in his left, and turned out to face the open ocean. Right now it looked so deceptively calm. Yet he knew that out there another storm was building. He pulled his radio from his belt. "Ensign Aja, this is Daniel. Round up the Sub-Zero subs. We've got another mission for them." "Yes, sir," came her reply, a moment. Kelly mentioned to Daniel how much of a believer she is now, how incredible that thousands of years ago 3 different civilizations, Mayans, Aztec and Chinese, were able to actually predict the end of times in 2012. Or is it safe to say almost? And what about all the biblical signs? Was that all a big coincidence? Or were they predicting the beginning of a new era with his Sub-Zero program? Whatever the answer is, Daniel, I'm just glad your experiment worked. With that, Daniel looked down. "Like I said, Kelly, so as long as we're together, I'm ready to face any prediction, mythology, or biblical prophecy." She smiled up at him, and they embraced. He looked up with tears in his eyes as he embraced Kelly and said, "Thank you, Mum. You are and always will be my inspiration."